to just have a brief word with Peter Mandelson, who is still with us here in the studio. In terms of what you're seeing tonight, a reminder, the exit polls predicting a Labour majority of 170, and yet David Bull from Reform is telling us very clearly Reform has been taking votes from Labour as well.
Yes, and I'm not really surprised by that, because although there are views and opinions of a nationalist and populist kind growing on the right of British politics, I don't think anything like the number of voters who have supported that Reform UK could be described as nationalist, populist or right-wing. They're looking for a very handy protest party to support, because they are furious with the Conservatives. And I have lost count of the number of people who have told me, indeed I've knocked on doors myself and found voters saying, I just cannot decide. I hate the Tories. There's no way I'm going to vote for the Conservative candidate, but I can't yet make up my mind who to protest with, either Labour or Reform. So they're not guided by some ideology. They're not racists. They're not anti-Semites. They're people who are looking for a handy protest vote, either Labour or Reform. Some have gone, the bulk of them, of course, have gone to Labour. Some inevitably have gone to Reform.
But why didn't they go to you then? If all of the things that
Most
you've
of them
said...
did. Most of them have.
But in terms of, they're not a party that existed in that kind of force a few years ago. So why didn't you think you were able to get them across?
No, Laura, they've existed for some time in various guises with different names. And of course, Nigel himself, Nigel Farage, you know, is the sort of running thread through all this. Now, look, at the core of Reform UK, there are a whole number of extremely unpleasant people with views who would be rejected by the overwhelming mass of the British people. But those views held by those people at the heart of Reform UK are not known to the general public. The general public are looking for parties to back or candidates to support in order to lash out against the Conservatives, and Reform have been the beneficiary.
With the greatest of respect, that's absolute nonsense. These are
We've seen your candidates.
There are a very small...
We've seen your candidates.
Let me finish, please.
We've seen your candidates.
There are a very small number of candidates, and we have removed them and dealt with them. Let me just make one thing very clear, which is that we stood down. We gave Boris Johnson an 80-seat majority because he said he was going to get Brexit done. He did not get Brexit done. We have put a border in the Irish Sea. We've annexed the United Kingdom, annexed Northern Ireland. Now, that is unacceptable. Tell me another country that goes around purposely annexing parts of its own territory. I think it's unacceptable. And actually, what people want around the country, they see Labour, you're going to put taxes up enormously by £15 billion, it seems, and people are against that. They want low tax, low regulation and high growth, and that's what we offer.
I'm not sure that people voted Reform because they want less protection and more exposure to market forces, quite honestly.
People voted for Reform because they're patriotic.
Nor do I think people voted for Reform because they objected to some notional border down the Irish Sea. I think you're living in a fantasy land with respect. No, people, of course people have voted for an insurgent party, but I would not describe this as a popular insurgency, and I would not flatter Nigel Farage by describing Reform UK as a movement.